Group reacts over anti-Igbo lecture on ethnic profiling by Prof. Bako during his inaugural lecture at Usman Dan Fodio University, Sokoto. The Forum of Southeast Academic Doctors, FOSAD, has expressed its dismay at the content of the 50th inaugural lecture titled The Igbo Factor in the History of Intergroup Relations and Commerce in Kano. Opportunities and Challenges Revisited, recently delivered by Professor Bako at the Usman Dan Fodio University, Sokoto, UDUS. According to the group, Professor Bako misrepresented historical facts at various points in his lecture and also engaged in typical Igbo profiling, teasing a xenophobic position that negates the integrative spirit of the Nigerian constitution. As an academic advocacy group in part dedicated to understanding the diverse people of Nigeria and the broader tapestry of Nigerian history, FOSAD said it had looked forward with great interest when Professor Bako's independent lecture was announced. The group said it had expected that, as a professional historian, the professor would present the history of Igbos in Kano and their broader history in northern Nigeria with depth and dispassion. To be fair to Professor Bako, FOSAD said he met the expectation to a degree at the various points in his presentation, citing credibly scholarly sources. According to the group, Professor Bako correctly historicized the impetus behind Igbo immigration to other parts of colonial and post-colonial Nigeria. FOSAD also said the professor correctly portrayed the enterprising nature of the Igbos who left their homeland over 100 years ago to take advantage of opportunities presented in the colonial administration of Kano and other parts of the north. Despite this incontestable historiography, FOSAD said Professor Bako, for reasons he cannot fathom, advanced some arguments that are not supported by historical evidence or contemporary fact. One of the controversial and historically dubious claims made by Professor Bako, according to FOSAD, is a statement that Igbo set out in the colonial era to dominate Nigeria. As the professor put it in his lecture, the Igbo, in actual fact, from the 1950s, started sending their sons and daughters to Europe and America for higher education, all with the hope of eventual domination of the country, not necessarily for developing it and the benefit of the nation. FOSAD said this is a provocative and historically inaccurate statement which calumniates the Igbos and misconstrues the legitimate attempt to compete in colonial and post-colonial Nigeria. The academic group disputes the claim that Igbos ever sought to dominate Nigeria, pointing out that Professor Bako never provided historical evidence to back up his controversial assertion. The group also said that Igbos are known to invest and improve any locality where they are domiciled, sometimes even at the expense of their homeland. FOSAD disputes Professor Bako's statement that Igbo traders with their supposedly aggressive trade practices and insular trade groups displace indigenous traders in Kano or anywhere else in the colonial and post-colonial north. The group recalls many collaborated ventures between Igbos and indigenous people of Kano and somewhere else in the north, and argues that the more than century-old sojourn of Igbos in northern Nigeria will not be possible without the alleged Igbo aggressiveness. The group also points to the successful settlement of northerners in parts of Igbo land, which continues to this day, despite the terrorization of Igbo land by Islamic bandits and militant cattle herders from the north. Similarly, FOSAD decries Professor Bako's silence on an event that led to the Nigerian Civil War, his selective account of the devastation and after effects of the war, and his rather rosy depiction of the post-war policy of indigenization, which should change the Igbos, but in his recounting was depicted as entirely beneficial to them. Professor Bako broached the issue of Igbo dispossession through the abandoned property saga, but nowhere in his historiography, according to FOSAD, was there a mention of the grim prospect faced by Igbos who had to scratch up a new existence in a post-war Nigeria with a £20 given to them, whatever their pre-war bank account balance was. According to FOSAD, the most vexatious part of Professor Bako's lecture is a suggestion that Igbos self-marginalize themselves in the Nigerian political arena by focusing almost exclusively on commercial and mercenary pursuits in the post-war period. This couldn't be further from the truth. FOSAD said as Igbos have fully participated in policies of the country, despite the fact that they yet to emerge 54 years after the Civil War, a Nigerian precedent of Igbo extraction. In this regard, Foster said it strongly condemns Professor Badu's labeling of R10T a socio-cultural organization seeking to promote Igbo unity and interest in Nigeria as a secessionist outfit. Although the professor disclaimed an interest in contemporary politics, he nonetheless made a pointed reference to recurrent contestant stations on the question of power shift as well as agitation for separation by Igbo political platforms, such as IPOB, the R10T worldwide, and other Igbo separatist groups. Foster said this is a gross mischaracterization of R10T's and by extension broader Igbo political outlook. The academic group say this is more worrying that Professor Bako concluded by saying he hoped his lecture generates greater interest in the history of Igbo diaspora in different parts of the country, and that the lecture was delivered for the nothing they like to know what actually happened so that necessary arrangements are made. Foster said it wonders why academic of Professor Banko's standing should be wondering whether Igbos would ever depart northern Nigeria, despite the integrative aspiration of the Nigerian Constitution 1999, which as Section 41(1) provides that every citizen of Nigeria is entitled to move freely throughout Nigeria and to reside in any part thereof, and no citizen of Nigeria shall be expelled from Nigeria or refuse entry thereback or exit therefrom. Foster calls on the Nigerians to celebrate their shared citizenship and to embrace a common interest in building a great country that could become the pride of become the pride of Africa and beacon of Black civilization. Foster's research and documentation team, Dr. Chudi Okoye, Dr. Marcel Mbamalo, Dr. Chris Belon. Look, the thing is, am I surprised? I am not. Imagine somebody who is this learned. Imagine somebody who is this learned still coming out and still giving this kind of views. Do you know what is going on? I'll tell you if you don't know what is going on. They're giving this kind of views. If you watch the end of that, as in the end of what the professor said, let me go back. He now said that the academic who says this is more worrying that Professor Bako concluded by saying he hoped his lecture generates a greater interest in the history of Igbo diaspora in different parts of the country. And the lecture was delivered for the nothing he likes to know what actually happened, there's some part of the story that was falsified. I'm going to have to use that. And then he said so that they can make arrangements. I don't really have anything much to say. Do it whatever whatever you think you can do with it. But this is what I'm going to say. I don't think Nigeria is ready for democracy. I'm not going to say Africa because now we're just a part of Africa. Nigeria is not ready for democracy, and I think everybody should return to the region. It is when we have learned to live with ourselves, love ourselves, then maybe we can start extending the love outside, because all I see here, even after so many years, is hatred planted in between these things. He says something about them, then he's going to paint it to look bad on them, and nah. All right, so on this note, we've come to the end of the news. So thank you for tuning in to listen until I come your way next time. Enjoy the rest of your day.